Sir, what are the latest events or news you have in your desk? Along with after that, I will do a question on Donald Trump is heading to Tokyo. He has a series of meeting with the high-level Eastern Asian leaders, including Xi Jinping and Japanese Prime Minister, South Korean President.
Well, a very warm welcome to all my guests here in the studio today. Good afternoon to our viewers. And of course, one of the things that I picked out for today's discussion was that Donald Trump is in Asia. There's a strategic push in Asia that he believes that will make sure that United States is on the top afterwards when he concludes this visit into Asia and to Southeast Asia. We see the nice reception that Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim had given him in Malaysia on the sidelines of the ASEAN summit that is happening. And of course, the new Prime Minister for Japan is also there in attendance amongst other Asian nations. And of course, one of the things that Donald Trump is trying to show all the leaders here that he is open to breaking the rules. One of those which include allowing Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim to ride in the Beast, which is US President's car that he uses on his foreign trips. But alongside this, Trump is also trying to make a deal with Brazil. We know that he has opposing views with leftist Lula da Silva. Of course, Donald Trump's policies put him in the right spectrum of the political spectrum. And of course, this time around, he's trying to look forward to a minerals deal, a rare earths deal with China. All of this comes amidst the fact that Donald Trump has ignored or if not said that he's not interested right now to talk with Russian President Vladimir Putin. So this is the dynamic that we are going to be working with this week.
Excellent, excellent, sir. You have given me a different directions, and for that I just thinking one question to you. What implications could this meeting have on global trade policies, particularly in the areas of tariffs, rare earth exports and semiconductor supply chains, because you have good experience on semiconductors and rare earth products?
Well, if it's not just semiconductors, rare earths, take it as you will, they are hard to figure out where to extract it from. Of course, there are lots of development in the scientific field because today in the modern era we require these rare earths for mobile phones, for laptops, for almost all consumer electronics, electric vehicles as well, and even those machineries that are ejected into space for the various space programs the individual countries have. So once again, reiterating the fact that these rare earths will become a matter of discussion between friends and foes alike.
After a ceasefire with Israel, the Gaza Strip is now described as a horrific, unmapped and minefield, where clearing unexploded bombs may take 20 to 30 years and already hundreds of civilians have been killed or wounded. I want to begin this particular issue with Shamsul Pantho. He has a very deep and analysis study on this. Sir, what are the immediate humanitarian priorities in Gaza given the unexploded ordnance crisis? It is a new kind of crisis are coming to the global medias.
Well, thank you for shifting the focus of today's topic into the Gaza ceasefire and the Gaza situation. One thing I would want to point out to our viewers, we usually tend to see how the US administration is of support to the Israeli Knesset and how the Israeli administration is been what they have been doing towards Gaza. But one of the things that the US did not see eye to eye was when the preliminary bill passed regarding the annexation of the West Bank, which would of course inadvertently break this ceasefire, which is still remaining so very fragile. One of those characters, especially Marco Rubio, had stepped out in outright disagreement that you cannot take such a step, which would definitely make sure this ceasefire is faltering. And of course, there is a reputation of Washington who is at stake here. Of course, when Donald Trump was asked about this question, he said that is just not going to happen. These are the words that President Donald Trump had used when questioned regarding annexation of the West Bank. And we know that the death toll has surpassed 68,000 as of recent by the Gazan Health Ministry. Of course, the entire world is trying to understand how long this ceasefire is going to hold, especially that Donald Trump has now moved on towards Asia, trying to understand what is the competencies when looking into a country such as China, someone who has diverse manufacturing processes which you don't see in the United States of America. That is what Donald Trump wants to create, an America which is of course a manufacturing hub for the world. To get there, one must understand where China and in the modern day lies. According to CNN, Donald Trump is now creating a plan to move into Japan to talk with the Japanese community. But coming back to your original question, the attacks on the Gazan people are, of course, a perfect example of a modern day active genocide.
And as you always said, this is a fragile ceasefire, you are stick on that. When shutdown begins, he was traveling Washington DC. He has described the situation in the street, in the station, in the different important offices of personally with me and in the show also. Sir, I have framed one question for you right this moment. What are the main political and budgetary disagreements that have led to the current federal government shutdown in the United States? Because when he was in Washington DC, it was day 1. Today is day 27. Donald Trump is right now heading to Tokyo. When he will be back, it will be 30th day, and previous record is 33rd day. My question is, the commentators in CNN and CBC, they said this government is like as coal engine train.
Well, thank you for asking me a question regarding the government shutdown that is still ongoing in United States of America. I think the last shutdown was for 35, if not 37 days.
35 days.
35 days.
The longest so far.
So, which is
that was
the
also
longest.
during his time.
Yes, back in 2018, if I'm
Yes,
not
sir.
wrong.
Yes, sir.
So, once again, we must understand what the deadline to relieve these government workers who are now proceeding on. As Norman was saying, that from November 1st, they are set to run out of money. Various governmental institutions who look towards to the betterment of societies and people around, not only in New York, but also around the 50
But also
states.
air traffic controller.
Of course, this was one of the major issues. Even when I was coming back from United States of America, the ATC tower controllers who work there are stationing a silent protest in not appearing at the towers. And what that has done is it's given a bad demoralization in between their culture. And of course, flights have been affected from various cities and towns in America. So, once again, Donald Trump, he is on an Asian tour at this moment, but he must understand that the people of his country are now enraging and wanting to know when this government shutdown will be over.
Due to Donald Trump's too much move, Russia-Ukraine getting less focus, I want to keep on board power grid and energy infrastructure attacks in Ukraine in context of the Russia-Ukraine war. First, I want to get the comments from Shamsul Pantho sir. Sir, renewed strikes by Russian forces on Ukraine's energy infrastructure, including power plants and grid facilities, are increasing risk of winter blackouts as the war enters its 1,300 plus days mark. So, my question is, how critical are these strikes to Russia's war strategy and Ukraine's defense capability?
Well, thank you for asking me a question regarding Russia-Ukraine war that is still ongoing. And of course, as you said, the winter months are approaching, and if you can't compare winter of Europe to winter of Bangladesh per se, but of course, when you are wielding war or waging war, weather and conditions of the playground or the playfield or the battlefield, might I say, is quite so important. But one of the things that I picked out in world news regarding this issue was there was a meeting between NATO leadership and the coalition of the willing membership of a group of countries who have stepped out from Europe and UK, who is planning to reconstruct Ukraine to the best of its capacities. They are arguing that they are going to take Russian oil and gas off of the global market. This is going to have a drastic effect towards the Russian economy. We picked out on how the two big oil producers of Russia have been now facing sanctions by United States. So that is one of the developments that there are regarding this issue. But however, world policy and narratives are shifting with Donald Trump's travel to Asia, but one cannot ignore that Vladimir Putin and Volodymyr Zelensky is still battling out on the eastern flank of Ukraine. We know that the Zaporizhia power plant was shut off for many months during this warlike stance, which is now being visited by the IAEA, the International Atomic Energy Association, to understand whether or not this plant can still generate electricity. So, these are one of the major developments that are happening.
Yeah, I found very diversified comment from you. One of the top media, Washington Post, has written international support for Ukraine may ramp up. Addressing energy security and civilian protection. They also written the attacks highlight that infrastructure is a front line in modern warfare, leading to innovation in resilience. I want to do a little question to Shamsul Alam Pantho, our international affairs commentator, because he is following this every move of these events. Sir, could Ukraine's recovery and rebuilding plans be permanently hampered by such Russian attacks day by day?
Well, one of these Russian attacks that the international media picked out, that at least 3 people were killed and 32 injured in the capital Kiev in an overnight Russian drone attack. These kind of news that happen on a daily basis when regards to this war. And of course, you mentioned the reconstruction of Ukraine. One of those European leaders who seem to be very supportive of Volodymyr Zelensky is, of course, Italian Prime Minister Meloni, who seems to be in a position of trying to avoid any kind of escalation towards Russia, but also being completely supportive of Ukraine, and that Ukraine's international sovereignty was attacked by the Russian military. And of course, if you cannot protect Ukraine at this moment, the next country may be Poland, it could be Hungary, it could be Finland, which is dealing with a border attack by Russia. And if given the size of Russia as a country, it is more of the size of a continent, if you would ask me. So once again, if you look at Europe, it's not as vast and big as Russia, but it is a collection of countries, various cultures, various backgrounds that make up Europe and the UK. And we used to know that the colonial powers actually came from this part of the world even back in the day. So we have to understand where there will be a ceasefire, when there will be a ceasefire, whether or not Donald Trump is going to shy out like he has done so in the past, as Mr. Ali Ahmed was saying. But if you look back at the very first time Volodymyr Zelensky was in the White House during the Donald Trump presidency, he was bullied to an extent that world leaders just does not expect.
That was very unprecedented.
Unprecedented. So. Yeah. That actually opened the eyes of European nations alike, that said that we need to have some kind of understanding between ourselves and not always expect help from the United States.